According to the charges filed today in federal court, the defendants received payments into these businesses that they controlled, and in some instances, falsely identified payments that they received as rental fees for a Florida condominium. The information charges in a second count that the defendants, through these actions, conspired to impede the Internal Revenue Service, falsely characterizing the monies they had received. In announcing these developments today, the first developments in an ongoing investigation, there are a few individuals and organizations that I would like to note. First, I would like to thank our friend and our colleague, Jackie Carroll, from the Luzerne County District Attorney's Office for her office's support and assistance in all phases of this investigation. Thank you. I also want to acknowledge the thorough, painstaking, careful, extraordinarily professional performance of the two investigative agencies in this case, the Internal Revenue Service and the Federal Bureau of Investigation. These agencies have added to a legacy of excellence through their investigation, an investigation that culminates in its first phase with the filing of these charges today, along with this plea agreement. I also want to acknowledge the contributions of the prosecution team in this case. That team has been led by Senior Litigation Counsel Gordon Zubrod. The Senior Litigation Counsel in the Department of Justice is an attorney who undertakes the most difficult cases and achieves the greatest results for the public. Gordon Zubrod is a Senior Litigation Counsel. Mr. Zubrod's been aided in this effort by a team of lawyers from our office. Those lawyers include our Criminal Division Chief, Chris Vicernik. As I noted for you, what we're announcing today are the first developments in an ongoing investigation. It has been said that for evil to triumph, all that is necessary is for good people to remain silent. I would urge anyone who believes that they possess information regarding wrongdoing to reach out, to not remain silent, but rather to contact the Federal Bureau of Investigation or the Internal Revenue Service here in our Scranton office. Your assistance is vital to the success of any investigation. And I urge the public, if you have information pertinent to these matters, to reach out to the FBI and reach out to the IRS. And with that, let me ask my friend, colleague, and partner.
That this is an ongoing investigation. Do you anticipate that others may be charged? You named participant number 1 and number 2 in there. Who would be seeing further charges against other people?
What I would note for you is that the investigation is ongoing, and we're inquiring into all matters of potential criminal culpability here. But I wouldn't want to speculate on whether or when additional charges may be filed. Should that happen, we will, of course, notify the public because of the public's right.
Where are these men right now, sir?
These gentlemen are not in custody at this point in time. With the filing of these charges, they'll be summoned in to appear in court to enter a guilty plea at some time in the future. So their exact whereabouts are known to them, but they are not in custody at this point in time. I should note that that's not uncommon in a white-collar fraud case of this type. Individuals who enter into plea agreements and who agree to plead guilty to information are typically summoned in at a future date in court. We made a judgment as we proceeded in this case that we would treat these defendants like any other white-collar defendant. We would treat them no worse than any other white-collar defendant, nor would we treat them any better. Yes, sir.
Will Ciavarella and Conahan be required to cooperate in your ongoing investigation as part of this plea agreement?
The plea agreements, which are filed with court, will be available to you all shortly. Will speak for themselves. I'm not going to comment on aspects of cooperation at this time. Thank you. Yes, sir.
You're stressing that this is an ongoing investigation. Is it an ongoing investigation into this specific matter, or are there other matters at the Luzerne County Courthouse that you are looking into as well?
It is the duty and obligation of law enforcement to look into any allegations of wrongdoing, and it is our duty and obligation as federal law enforcement officials to refuse to comment beyond that on what may or may not be the subject of investigation.
Attorney Crossman, you asked Mr. Conahan to resign from the board of directors of the First National Community Bank.
That's a matter that I think should be left to Mr. Conahan and to bank officials in light of today's development. The plea agreement provides for the disbarment of the defendants, and it provides for them to surrender public office within 10 days of the court's acceptance of the plea. Beyond that, I believe those are matters best left to those organizations and entities, armed as they are now with the information we have. Yes, sir.
When did this investigation begin?
This has been an ongoing investigation for the better part of 2 years.
And was there a whistleblower that came forward?
I wouldn't be able to comment on what it is that caused us to inquire into these matters, other than noting that it has been an ongoing investigation.
Was there, if you can tell us, was there a grand jury involved in this? And this information came forward before a grand jury handed down indictments?
We typically do not comment on what may or may not be matters occurring in front of a grand jury, because the law forbids us from making any such comments. This has been the subject of an ongoing and extensive investigation. And that investigation has culminated today with the judges signing plea agreements, agreeing to enter these guilty pleas, these significant federal charges, and waiving the necessity of any presentation to a grand jury.
Is that sentence time mandatory, 87 months?
The 87 months is a stipulated sentence. That is, it is a sentence that the parties have jointly agreed is the appropriate outcome here. And under the terms of the plea agreement, if the court does not order the defendant to prison for 87 months, then the agreement would be null and void. So it is mandatory time. I'm sorry, did you have one more question?
Yes, there are some in the public, and I know you explained the white-collar crime, they're not being treated any differently than other white-collar criminals. However, people may look at this and say, why aren't we seeing the 2 judges who are supposed to set a high standard, I hate to use the word walk of shame, why weren't they brought into a federal magistrate and to face the public?
Well,
It seems to me that they can kind of deal here and come in sometime without the public even knowing.
oh, no, that's not correct, and I appreciate you asking that. Proceedings in this case are open proceedings, and as a date is scheduled for the arraignment of these defendants and their guilty plea, that will be an open and public proceeding. I expect that these defendants will be treated like every other defendant in federal court. And with respect to white-collar offenders who have signed agreements to plead guilty prior to indictment, the standard practice is to issue a summons directing them to appear on a date certain for a public proceeding. It was my judgment that while some might wish for a moment of drama, that sort of perp walk that you mentioned, that justice requires us to deal with these defendants like we would every other defendant in a similar situation. Justice and honest services require that we not treat them more severely or less severely. And so we're going to treat them like any other defendant. The court will schedule a date for the entry of guilty pleas. That will be a matter of public record, and the citizens and the public, who I understand have a deep and abiding interest in this case, will have the opportunity to attend those proceedings.
Mark,
Yes, I'm sorry.
is there any evidence that these judges allowed these business ties to affect judgments in other cases outside of the juvenile court system?
The allegations in the information filed today